Morning, everyone. Where do I put this? Let me try here. All right, so I didn't understand a single word of what Radovan, Iveta, or Andre said, but I fully agree. Because we're an open source company, that's how we work. I did hear something about CENE, which is my region, Central, Eastern, Northern Europe. And before I start to talk about why Red Hat, why open source, why now a fast and flexible future, I've been in this company for about 11 years. So I've accompanied the growth and the development of many of the things I'm going to talk about in the next 30 minutes. It's amazing to see so many people here. I'm really proud. And by the way, everybody that's standing up, there's a whole bunch of seats available over here if you want to sit. No? Okay. All right. So let's go on this journey a little bit. And some of these slides I'm not going to go in depth on because my successor on the stage, Mike Peach, that runs our middleware business, is going to go in more detail on some of these slides. But let's start the journey about 13 years ago, where a famous writer from Harvard, a technical writer, said 13 years ago that IT doesn't matter. Okay? And in the last 13 years, there's been a paradigm shift and an evolution to actually show us that today, in 2016, even last year, Joe McKendrick said every organization, whether services, manufacturing, or healthcare, is becoming a technology company. So you can see that the role of IT is changing, and it's becoming elementary in what we do today with our customers and as also consumers. So a couple of the leaders of the biggest organizations of the world are focusing on the digital strategy and the digital transformation as a CEO priority. So it's not just at the IT level, it's actually at the corporate level in the minds of the leaders of these companies, not just these companies, that are looking at digitization as a method of doing business for the future. And, you know, like, for example, my daughter, she turns 11, and she's from a generation where she's going to expect different things from IT, right? She consumes IT on her handheld, on her tablet, on her computer, in the way that she's going to experience life will be different than I do or that some of you do. I think in the end, we cannot avoid and shouldn't avoid the fact that the digital era is here. We need to embrace it. And today I also want to talk to you a little bit about how Red Hat will support you on that journey. So digital transformation, excuse me. So Gartner says that by 2018, 67% of global 2,000 CEOs will have digital transformation at the center of their corporate strategy. So it's about new ways of developing applications, services, and business towards the consumer markets, be it manufacturing, retail, telecommunications, and government, and we'll see that in a second. It's about modernization of existing platforms, and it's about agility and how we actually approach IT today in the organizations. So if you look at this slide, there's different drivers, but it's the same journey, right? We have economical drivers, we have specific industry needs, and we also, it requires a different behavior, which I'll talk about a little more in depth later on, and Mike will cover some of these areas as we go. By the way, the clock is not running, so I would appreciate if I'm getting close to the end, somebody gives me a sign. So we work with a couple of analyst companies. You all know these, IDC, Gartner, et cetera. And there's different ways to describe the evolution of IT. In the end, Gartner calls it bimodal IT. IDC calls it the third platform. We have different evolutions of IT, from the classic mainframe and terminal environments to the LAN and Ethernet internet environments, all the way up to now cloud development, agile IT, and application-driven cloud scope. The requirements, when I listen to our customers, not just in this region but all over the world, what they talk about a lot now is how do we get the mode 1 or first platform environments to actually cascade into a more agile environment. So how do I bring together developers and operations and the business to actually talk about improving IT, becoming hybrid in the sense of knowing that we have legacy applications, they still need to run. They're not less of value, but they're not the way that the market is working today, and they don't work in the way that, let's say, modern companies that are emerging today that don't have a 20-year history in IT are developing their businesses and their applications today. So it's about streamlining and automation. It's about elasticity. It's about scalability and agility. It's about responsiveness, right? And it needs to become a type of utility in practice. But it needs to be manageable, provisionable. It needs to take place on-premise and off-premise in a hybrid environment. It needs to be fast because the consumers expect speed and agility from a vendor today, right? And if you look here, and this is also, sorry, I don't want to look back, so I'm looking, just also really small here. IDC did a couple of statistics with us with about 6,000 IT leaders. And what you see here is that hybrid is actually taking place today. So we have a lot of on-premise infrastructure being run to provide services, but for example, on the first bar, mix of public and private cloud assets. So you can see that about 80% of CIOs plan on having a hybrid environment in the next couple of years, right? And as we go through these, maybe I will turn around. The multiple external cloud services is important to Red Hat, and you'll see this in a moment, because we want to make sure that as you consume technology and our software to build your infrastructures and your services, that you're not locked into one cloud provider. And cloud is happening, and hybrid cloud is happening, and we have great examples of Google and Amazon and IBM and many others that provide services where you can consume Red Hat technology. But we also want to make sure that you don't get locked in to one cloud provider, which will cause the same problem that many companies have today. When they want to be agile, they can't get out of that lock-in without huge effort. So Mike's going to talk about this a little more later in depth as part of his presentation. But if we look at the traditional kind of mode one world, right, platform one, we had a waterfall approach. Applications were being developed to provide services with longevity. Some companies plan on running applications for a decade or even longer to provide a service. Today, what we see is that we need more agility, and that the consumer, us, right, are asking for new things, and it's kind of like at the speed of light. In the end, every day new things are happening in IT, and we expect those to work. We expect them to be delivered. So every company has to find a way and a method to incorporate the fact that we have sustainable business, that we have a type of base estate and infrastructure, that we need to develop towards agile methods. So open source, because we said part of the theme of this presentation is why open source, why Red Hat, why now? 1993, when Red Hat was founded, it was founded based on the fact that collaboration played a key role in how technology should be developed at that point in time, but also in the future. And so when I joined in 2006, and I came from the telco world, coming into the software world, into the open source space, it was kind of amazing to see how an open source model actually works, right? So there's more than 1 million projects in the world currently, and they're kind of set up like companies. A lot of people are afraid of open source because they think that it's lacking control, and it's lacking mechanisms, and it's lacking stringency, but it's not. In the end, the open source community has produced so many of the core technologies we use today. And you can take a couple of these as an example. If you look at Hadoop, KVN as virtualization, the Fedora platform as a harness for all of the Linux development, Foreman, Apache, Fuse, Feed Henry, ManageIQ, OpenStack, Puppet, Ceph. All of these communities have created technology that is being used today in the enterprise space. So don't worry about the fact that an open source community isn't a company that you're employed by. Take advantage of the fact that in an open source, the agility, the speed, the functionality, the fixing of problems, the creating of technology happens at a very fast pace. But it's not just code, it's also culture. And in the end, let's say it's foundational at Red Hat at least, that working together adds value, right? And having ideas and sharing ideas and collaborating and really exchanging and accepting input creates a momentum. It's difficult to manage in the end, but it creates the right atmosphere and the right momentum to really create the right products in the sense of what do customers need and how do we address those requirements. The transparency involved in open source is one of the key differentiators, right? If we look at proprietary software companies, it happens in a closed world to us as customers, but in their world, it's also to a certain extent open, right? What we get in the open source community, access to the code, having visibility on what others do, actually exposes a problem, exposes a challenge, and lets everyone work on that solution together. The benefits is when you share problems, you get a faster speed to resolution, and working together, it creates the right standardization, it creates the right collaboration. So, actually, if you take, okay. Was that me or was that you? It was you. Okay, so if you take these communities, these millions of projects, right? What does Red Hat do? So Red Hat, and you know, Brno here in the Czech Republic is one of our key locations. We have over 1,000 developers, I'm sure Radovan said that, based in the Czech Republic, working on our technology, in support, in engineering, in development. But we work upstream and we work with the community on this. And then what we create are different projects that are the foundation to our business, so 15 to 16 different core projects, where we work with the communities to create environments to actually come to enterprise-ready products, right? That Red Hat maintains, Red Hat supports, Red Hat is responsible for. We offer services, and I have a slide on that coming up next. But in the end, these are the core projects from the open source community that produce our business today. So around $2.5 billion US that we have as an income selling free software, which is interesting. So how do we sell free software? We don't have a license, we have a subscription. So at Red Hat, there are kind of 4 pillars to our subscription model. I don't want to focus on this too much, but just for you to understand, we try to promote and support you using our technology by giving you a lot of freedom. So when you have, for example, a subscription to Linux, we don't confine that subscription to a certain version, right? We give you access to Linux. If you buy Linux, you have access to every supported version, and most of them are supported for 10 years. And in that life cycle of a subscription, 1 or 3 years or even longer, you can choose which versions of Red Hat Linux you use. So the benefits can be taken from RHEL 4, 5, 6, and 7, you know, from containerization to just pure bare metal technology. It's your choice. We won't punish you for changing, right, or upgrading, or using different versions of Linux. Same for all of our other technologies. So be it storage or virtualization, cloud, middleware, it's the same principle. The stability that we offer in our subscription model, which makes it interesting for you, is that we have an ongoing delivery model where we backport fixes, patches, security updates to maintain a stable API so that you don't have to recertify your technology and your infrastructure constantly. We do that for you. The partners and the ecosystems that we work in, both on the OEM and the ISV side, are extremely heavy and supportive of certifying Red Hat for their environments, which gives you an enterprise ecosystem, which is important for your customers when you're providing SLAs, support, and selling a service. We have a lot of expertise and know-how from our subscription model, from a knowledge base over specific TAM services. We have a product called Access Insight, where we actually screen your infrastructure and tell you about problems that you will potentially have based on a repository of millions of customer support cases, where we can help you identify problems before they actually happen. And we're committed to the sense that we want a subscription and our software to be sustainable for your business. So it's long-term. It's not about fast and dynamic and agile in the sense of what we offer. It's stable, it has longevity, it's reliable. So most of our products, I think there's only a few, but most should be around a 10-year support cycle. So maybe a little bit about the evolution of the infrastructure, right? When I joined Red Hat, well, I think for everybody, about a decade ago, the physical environment was the standard environment, right? We used servers to run applications, to provide services. At some point, there was virtualization, where we wanted to monetize the fact that servers weren't fully utilized. So companies like VMware that are super successful today built virtualization platforms. The open source community built on that, right? KVM, we acquired a company, well, I don't know how long it was ago, about 8 years ago, with the KVM technology that today acts as a basis for many, many companies' virtualization platforms. Not as a competitive platform, but as an alternative to VMware. Then we saw a lot of grid solutions turning into on-premise cloud solutions on how to use infrastructure within the company to provide services and gain momentum on minimizing cost and maximizing utilization on the infrastructure within a business. And then we saw the public clouds emerge, like Amazon and IBM and Google and all the others, that are providing their infrastructure to provide a service to your business for you to save cost and be more flexible and agile. On top of that, if you look at the evolution from monolithic applications to connected applications in the virtual environment to modern web applications, and in the end now microservice environments in the hybrid world, Red Hat's answer to that is containers, and everyone knows Dockers, and everyone should know Kubernetes. Everybody should know that when you subscribe to Red Hat Linux, we also deliver a containerized environment with the Linux subscription and Kubernetes as a management layer for that. I'm not going to go in depth on the other two slides, Mike, because you're going to cover those more closely. But in the end, our answer to that is the Openshift container platform. Okay? So if you listen to IDC, and you think about Openshift as a PaaS platform, and if you go to Openshift online, we have multiple millions of applications being developed on Openshift and also deployed on Openshift. This leads back to the fact that DevOps and how companies develop software, operate and deploy software, and how the business builds a case around the software has to change, and it is changing. And I can give you, I don't know, hundreds of examples of companies that we work with where in the beginning, when we tried to implement a DevOps environment and support that developers, business, and operations come together in one room, it was super difficult to even get the people to sit in one room and talk to each other, because they didn't acknowledge each other in the sense of it's one company, it's one strategy, the culture should be around the success of a business and not the success of a department, right? With Openshift, we bring together two things. One is the technology that you need to actually be agile in how you develop, run, operate your business and your applications, but also a platform to support the methodology of DevOps in the sense of bringing developers and business and operational resources together to talk about how the business can be more successful. And I cannot urge you enough to think about that in your organizations today. No matter what area of business you're in, it's a mindset. The problem usually is around people not wanting to deal with other people because they don't acknowledge what they do. And unfortunately, it's a fact. And our Openshift platform brings the technology to you, but also the methodology that we can support you with in implementing a DevOps strategy. So IDC says 531% average ROI. These aren't numbers that Red Hat made up. These are numbers that IDC derived, right, with their interviews. We have over 1 million of annual benefit per 100 developers per year, right? We have faster application development life cycles of 66%, 35% less IT staff time required per application developed, 7.42 million higher revenue per organization, and 38% lower IT infrastructure and development platform costs per application. If you're interested, please take time to talk to some of my staff about some reference cases we have with customers where we are achieving these types of benefits, right? They're real. We don't make them up. We have customers really experiencing these savings and this agility. The next slide, and Mike will also cover this a little more, is putting together the framework at Red Hat to provide you with more than just Linux. We're known very much as a Linux company. That's our legacy. It's where we do about 50% of our business. But that being said, the other 50% of our business is coming from services. It's coming from knowledge transfer. It's coming from middleware, cloud, storage, Openshift, all of our product portfolios. This here, this one I meant. Sorry. I'll talk about the other one in a second as well. It's almost the same thing. So here, what we're trying to show you is that when you engage with Red Hat, and we know that we cannot sell you everything, and we don't want to sell every company everything. We want to provide you with alternatives, proprietary environments, and give you the right foundation to be successful. And that's why we invest every year, and that's why we continue to buy technology and companies to enhance this portfolio, to give you the right mix of technology, management, and services, right, to engage in your journey in IT. So from the physical layer, via the application layer, the management layer, the tool layer, the services layer, I think our offering is solid, but it won't be 100% fit for everyone, right? And it's important that you take advantage of each of these elements where you need them. And here on this slide, it's the same slide but in a different view, just to show you and give you an idea that Red Hat is building its infrastructure software portfolio to give alternatives to proprietary solutions. Right, so take a moment to look at this, and it doesn't really matter where in the stack, all the way from API management up to in theory, desktop solutions, right, which we also have, but it's not our core focus. We want to give you the opportunity to work with open source, to run and develop your business successfully, being independent, being flexible, having some freedom of choice, which is important to us and is manifested in our DNA. A few words to Red Hat. So if you look at the timeline, 93 we were founded, 2016 we're doing over $2 billion in revenue. Some milestones, we went on the S&P 500 in 2009. We're publicly traded. 90% of the Fortune 500 companies use Red Hat technology today. We're almost 10,000 people. When I joined, we were 1,000 people. So we're a fast-growing company. We expanded in the last 10 years into over 35 countries with 85 offices. We're publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and we have award-winning solutions. And I encourage everybody to, again, talk to my staff, take time to visit the partners that are all associated with open source, our sponsors using open source technology also in their worlds to provide services, and really learn about Red Hat, what we do, and how we can support. In the end, it's a mindset issue, okay? Going a different route, doing things differently than before, doesn't apply to everyone in this room. It doesn't apply to the whole world because we have different segmentation of IT. We have legacy IT, people still working. Well, there's nothing wrong with a mainframe, but that's not where the technology is going today. But then also companies being founded in 2016 that don't know any different than using clouds to build their services, right? And not having their own infrastructure and their own data centers. And I think we need to realize that there are different scenarios. We need to take advantage of the fact that each have their advantage. We need to produce the culture within the organizations, within the markets and the business to embrace change. I think today change is the big buzzword because the development cycles are so fast. What's being offered in the market is so diverse that once every year new things are happening, we need to embrace change also in our organizations, in how we develop IT and how we produce our services. The processes associated to that need to change. So going back more into a DevOps environment, incorporating all of the departments and all of the people that play a key role in how software is developed and how services are produced need to be engaged. It's not up to the business, it's not just up to the developers that have the creativity, and it's not just up to the people in operations that provide the service to the front end. It's about everybody coming together. And in the end, it's about the technology itself and the journey that's on, and we're in a paradigm shift. And, you know, I just saw a report the other day now on the quantum processor, right, that's now capable of doing multiple tasks at once, which is going to be a milestone in how technology is used. We don't know exactly where technology is leading us and how it will influence our lives, but we need to embrace it, and we need to embrace the change. So that being said, I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to encourage everybody to have a great day learning about Red Hat, learning about some best practices, some use cases, some technology tracks, engaging with my team, and also taking some time to give us feedback via the feedback forms, because we're always interested on how we can improve these types of events. So thank you very much. Highly appreciated.